Kia ora and welcome to the Beer Jerk Beer of the Week Drink Along. I'm Joe.
I'm Luke.
And this is Back to Cali, a West Coast IPA by Mountain Culture out of Sydney.
And it's a West Coast IPA.
I did say that.
You know who loves West Coast IPAs?
No.
Everyone.
That is true. There's especially a bit of a pushback lately against hazies in favour of this style of clear-ish IPA.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like the pushback that we hear about is like 3 geeks in the Facebook groups.
Yeah,
very vocal.
It was very trendy in the UK for a while to be anti-hazy beer. But I mean, the sales trends don't really lie, do they? And
well,
it's still what everyone brews. So,
cheers.
Cheers. Bit of meringue.
Yeah, obviously it's sort of the cool thing to not like what everybody likes, and everybody does like hazy beer. That is a fact. No two ways about it. There's a lot of subpar hazy beer out there, everywhere, in every part of the world. When you speak to them overseas, there's just sort of the market is awash, and people seem to be fine drinking crappy hazy beer. And hazy beer came about as a bit of a backlash against West Coast IPAs, and I feel like a few years ago, you'd speak to someone and you'd be talking about beer, and they said, "No, I don't like beer." And they don't like beer because beer to them was a crappy, generic, bland, tasteless lager, or it was a bitter, resinous IPAs. Because beers like this, West Coast IPA, they were everywhere 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was when I was first getting into beer. It was so exciting, drinking Liberty Citra,
so good.
And, Garagista, and all those amazing sort of resinous, bitter.
Hop Zombie.
Yeah, super bitter.
Yeah, such great beers. And, you know, bitter flavours, it is an acquired taste. You know, bitterness is something that our nature as mammals, things that taste bitter in nature are things that we shouldn't really be eating or drinking. Generally it is poison or things to stay away from. But yeah, as I often think, the tastiest things in life, it's worth acquiring a taste for.
Yeah.
Marmite and olives and whiskey and West Coast IPAs that are bitter. This is a pretty resin, it's a good one.
Yeah, super piney, a lot of kind of citrus in there. They don't state the hops, but I'm guessing it's big on those C hops. Cascade, Citra, maybe Chinook, little throwback.
Yeah, we were talking about Chinook before. That was
Yeah.
a big hop 10 years ago. You don't
Yeah.
see a lot of around these days.
Yeah, I remember there were beers named after it when I was sort of starting out. You had the Shippers Chinook, and yeah, it was something I thought, wow, this is, and Amarillo was another big one.
Yeah.
Sort of those classic West Coast hops. And nowadays it's more sort of Mosaic, Simcoe, Citra, Cascade, but
They're just
yeah.
trends, right? And which brings us to probably the reason why Mountain Culture don't tell us what the hops are, because this is in their rotational series. And I've definitely spoken to brewers in the past that have, well, named a beer after a hop that they wanted to have as a core range beer, or they've had it prominently on their cans that they have printed. And then trends fluctuate and popularity of different hops fluctuate. So if you call this beer, you know, Chinook Surprise, you're screwed 6 months later when the hop growers decide to stop growing it.
Yeah.
So as this is, so it's in their rotational, they release it annually, right?
It's like seasonally or rotationally. So the rotational range has a stout in it, which you can guess sort of when that gets brewed, and a double red IPA, which I can't imagine they're brewing just as we come into summer.
Yeah.
Although they did have a fresh batch when we ordered. But yes, I think it's like they're 2 of their big sort of New England IPAs, this West Coast, a stout, and it's just really popular beers that were seasonals at one point that they keep coming back to. So yeah, I guess it's a good thing if you, and as we've seen in West Coast IPA, the trend has gone certainly a lot more pale than this and a lot less bitter than this.
Yeah.
So, you know, beers that are still being brewed that have the same name as they did in 2014, you know, probably taste very different.
New and improved,
Yeah.
changed and made more palatable for those people that hate bitter flavours. And as I say, fair enough. And a lot of people that are super tasters really can't stand bitter beers like this, just because it's too much, it's overwhelming. So yeah, it definitely is going to be, these sort of beers are going to be more appealing to more people if they're softer, more easygoing, lower bitterness, which is that's what hazy pale ales and hazy IPAs are all about. But yeah, with the I suppose it's like a recipe of a dish in a restaurant. That if you can't get one key ingredient for a dish, you can substitute it. You can put other things together, and it definitely is the way that if you have a beer recipe where you've got a combination that's really carefully honed with 5 different hops in there, and you suddenly can't get one of the hops, you can alter things and change things around. So you get a beer that is pretty similar, and also from season to season, it's an agricultural product. So
just balance in different ways.
Yeah, the hops do change season to season. Like one hop variety will change depending where it's grown, the seasonality. So yeah, quite a smart thing actually to not specifically say what the hops are. But I think I did read somewhere about back to Cali that it's Pacific Northwest hops and some Australian.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it might have a bit of like something like Ella in there.
Galaxy,
yeah, one of those Australian hops. But we're just guessing. So if you're in the NZB Jets Facebook group, throw us some guesses. What hops you reckon are in here? And the history of West Coast IPAs, yeah, massive 10 years ago. But also like last week when we were chatting about these guys' collaboration with Sierra Nevada and how Sierra Nevada kicked off in 1980. And that really sort of started the whole new movement in modern craft beer. That really was, it was just, people were crazy about IPAs. And it was just all about, a lot of these IPAs that were sort of, they were one-note IPAs and pretty one-dimensional. And
yeah, and it was almost a dirty word sort of before craft was, your Spates drinkers or whatever. Oh, I don't drink those IPAs. And,
yeah.
I used to hear that a lot. Just in craft beer bars, people come in, oh, I don't want any IPAs.
Yeah, it's a cliche.
Do you want a stout then? That was the wrong question.
Yeah, exactly. No, you want a lime red, and that's fine for you, yeah, that's totally fine. But yeah, it was all the cliches about, hipsters and beards and IPA drinkers, beer glasses that are jam jars.
Coming soon to the Fridge and Flagon.
So this is back to Cali, which is, so DJ, who's the founder and head brewer of Mountain Culture, he's not from California, he's from, I think, Oregon?
I don't know. you know these things.
Well, I think
Colorado, Oregon?
I think it's from North Carolina or Colorado, somewhere that's seeing it. Because he brewed at Oscar Blues when he was in America, and I think he was just sick of being in Colorado. And he just heard of a couple that were starting a brewery in Australia. So he moved over and he was the head brewer at Modus Operandi and got all manner of awards. So beers like Former Tenant and just real superstar beers coming out of Modus. And Modus still do great stuff, and we import Modus occasionally. And then they kicked off doing their own thing, which was where Mountain Culture came from. So yeah, definitely a guy who they really embraced the whole New England style, these hazy IPAs to begin with, but West Coast IPAs definitely have a place that's close to DJ's heart, and they're the beers that when he started brewing, when he got into drinking beer, definitely would have been beers that tasted like this. But yeah, this is a beer that I just keep coming back to. I just can't get enough of West Coast IPAs.
Yeah, super sessionable for its 7.4, is it?
I think it's 7.6.
Yeah. I mean, it's something you can drink quite easily. Luckily, it's not as hot a day as it's been lately. Otherwise, we might be moving on to the second can before our walk zone. But yeah, beers like this, and I mentioned it last week. The pale ale, Mountain Culture just executes so well. And yeah, the Be Kind Rewind and the Status Quo, they're just such great beers to have in the fridge when you just feel like pale ale or lager or West Coast IPA. It's such a reliable brewery to have on hand.
And there are brewers that just do have a great way with hops, and that is a real focus, and that they go and visit the hop growers and do harvest selection, and Mountain Culture 100% is one of those breweries that you can just trust. If they're putting out a hoppy beer, it's going to have the good stuff in there, the absolute best hops, which are, it's the ingredients, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And lastly, shout out to half litre cans.
Yeah, there's a nice change. It's obviously 440s and 330s here, sort of 500s and 355s or 375s
A lot
in
more
Australia.
popular.
It changes brewery to brewery, doesn't it?
And you've got more options, and you know, when I'm canning beers, obviously packaging is an important thing for me at Small Gods, and I'm always trying to get more unusual can sizes and things that are different will stand out, but you just can't get non-standard can sizes in New Zealand unless you are Kirin or Lion. You're doing massive volumes, and you're doing special runs that they'll produce whatever size you want. If you're just doing 2,000 litre batches, the suppliers are not going to get you 500ml cans or 375s. But that
MOQ 100,000 cans or something.
But those extra few sips not necessarily in a West Coast IPA, because it's probably this ABV. I'd be fine with a 440.
Yeah.
Because I want to get it drunk fast while it's cold. But if it was a lager, or there are some beers that I would want to be drinking a bigger volume of, but more is more. And I'm happy about it, and I hope you're happy about it as well, because this is a super expensive beer to be getting in the Beer Jet box that you just paid $8 for, including shipping. So once again, another fantastic deal for the box. So very smart of you to still be subscribing to the Beer Jet Beer of the Week subscription.
Yeah, and if you want more of this beer, we still have a handful. I think I counted less than 10 of that 12-pack left. So yeah, I think I might take one home because the fridge is looking empty, but it's a great box. $89, like, can't go wrong. It's a mix of their core and rotational range. So you get like 4 of these 500ml cans, not just this one. And yeah, some 375s or 355s, and it's a great time.
Yeah, killer mix. Yeah, so good. We actually had a regular friend of ours came in to click and collect that Man and Culture box yesterday. And he was just like, yeah, I was at Emu Plains a few weeks ago. You guys are selling this beer too cheap. Like, I don't know if you know, but these half-litre cans, they're like 18 or 22 Australian dollars over there. And I was like, yes, I know. It's just that no one's heard of Australian brewers in New Zealand, so we need to sell them at a cheap price because we want to move fast. We want people drinking these beers in good condition. But anyway, I'm almost out of beer. I'm sick of talking. Cheers, Joe.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us yet again. Great work, Man and Culture.